Welcome to the Mad Love Your Life show. I'm Mary D, the Joy Catalyst, here to be your host and transformation guide. Mad Love is about the mad, making a difference, and love is what we serve up to live a delicious life. My intention is to help you spark new ideas, break limiting beliefs, and align with your deepest dreams and desires. Get ready for laughter, inspiration, and finding your inner roar in every show. Hi, everyone. It's so great to have you back on the show this week. I have a super incredible guest for you, as always. And today, you are going to want to take some notes and be present for this because it's going to be so good. I have so many great questions because, as you know, I love biohacking. I love figuring out how we can have more longevity in our life and, of course, an excellent quality of life. And our guest today, she's going to be able to talk a little bit about that with us. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Marie Elizabeth. She is a mentor, a brain trainer, and she works with high achieving women who are hitting midlife and are ready to flow instead of push. They've done things the hard way to prove that they could, and they're now longing for a renewal of passion, purpose, and play. Through her innovative blend of biohacking, shadow work, and subconscious reprogramming, Marie Elizabeth has developed a framework that empowers even the most hard-driving women to regulate their nervous system, also to trust their intuition and step into the wisdom zone where they don't have to work so hard to be successful, feel radiant, and experience miraculous flow. She offers private and group mentoring, as well as luxurious retreats at her home in Los Cabos, Mexico. Marie Elizabeth has also delivered 2 TEDx talks, and her work has been featured in Thrive Global, Sway, and Forbes. Marie Elizabeth is also a published author with an MFA in poetry from Sarah Lawrence College and an underwater photographer who has a thing for sharks. And I share that thing for sharks and can't wait to talk more about all this juicy stuff. With that, what I love to start with, Marie Elizabeth, is asking, what do you know now about the work that you do that you wish you had known before you had gotten started?
You cut out a little bit there, so I'm going to take out these headphones because I think it might be on my end.
Oh, so no worries. Okay, so now I can't hear you anymore. Yeah, so my question was, what do you know now that you wish you had known before you got started in your work?
That it's okay to go slowly. I've always been a person who's motivated, driven. I move fast. I grew up in New York City, and I'm a quick start. If your listeners know about the Colby scale, I'm an 8 quick start. And so I tend to leap and move quickly. And when things aren't going quickly, I get frustrated. And what I've learned is that a lot of the best changes and most lasting changes, especially in our brains and our bodies, happen when we're more methodical, when we're willing to be more mundane and regimented and predictable.
Yes, I can completely resonate with that. The first 40-ish years of my life and the first 20 of my career, for sure, I was in that mode of fast pace and the hustle, making sure everything gets answered so quickly and everything's so efficient and everything's, overdone. And it's always, the standard was very high. And I'm not saying that the standard is low these days, but I've learned to shift the alignment around, like, the standard can be high, but I also don't have to work like a dog, and I don't have to move at the speed of light. Like, I can actually ease and flow through my work, ease and flow through my day, ease and flow through whatever's feeling good in my nervous system and my body, and not have the pressure. And I think that's part of it, is like, what is this imaginary pressure that we put on ourselves, especially in the years where we believe are our achieving years, right? As if time runs out and suddenly we're useless at some certain age. But it's like, no, that's not true. And so how do we also, process some of that? So I appreciate that description. And then just when I was reading your interview, we mentioned shadow work, and I don't think that everyone understands that verbiage. So could you describe for us, what does it mean? What is shadow work, and why is it important?
Well, the shadow is a concept that was invented really by Carl Jung, who was a very famous psychologist. And the idea is that whatever parts of us that we're not in approval of, we tend to disown or suppress. So let's say you're not in approval of your jealousy, or you're not in approval of your anger, or you're not in approval of your neediness. Can be anything like that. You'll shove that into a dark corner of yourself that's called the shadow. And what
Mm,
happens is it's still operating from behind the scenes. So even though in your conscious awareness, you're like, I'm not an angry person, I'm serene all the time. However, your guts might be in knots, or
mm,
you can't sleep well at night because you can't get a good rest, or you don't know why you blow up when you see somebody left a dropped sock on the floor.
mm,
That's all expressions of disowned anger that's operating, that's festering in the shadow. And so, what
ooh,
shadow work does is we work to bring to the light what's been hidden in a loving, compassionate, accepting way. Because when we have permission for all the parts of ourselves to exist, then we can be free.
hmm. I love that. I'm a fan of freedom, so that
Me
definitely sounds good to
too.
me. Yes, yes. And
It's like
one of
we have this idea that if we don't feel these things, we'll be free, but it's the opposite.
got it, got it. Yeah, so it's not repressing the feeling, but it's rather expressing the feeling, and probably doing it in the healthiest way possible, so that we're not becoming like tea kettles where we blow up every time, our feelings are compressed.
100%. Yeah.
Excellent. And I know you do some stuff around brain training. Talk to me about what it means to train the brain. Like, how do you help train a brain? Is it like training a puppy dog, or is it like training an alligator? Because I imagine one is not like the other.
Yeah, I love that. Uh, I would say the brain is probably a bit of both puppy dog and alligator. There are a few ways I go about it. One, I practice a type of work that's called summit transformation, where I take people through these exercises. They set a goal in present tense as if it already exists, which
Mm,
when I muscle test it, tests weak because their brain doesn't believe it already exists, because it
mhm,
knows, it looks out at their life and it's like, no, that's not true. And through doing these exercises, it brings the subconscious mind into alignment with this conscious goal, this conscious desire. And then when the subconscious believes it to be true, which is what happens through these brain training exercises, then you create an action plan and you actually follow through and do it. Because the thing that derails all of us when we have something that we want to go for and then we find ourselves struggling to do it is the subconscious mind. Because the subconscious mind is invested in things staying the same. Even if it doesn't like what's happening, it's the known. And the subconscious likes the known, it doesn't like the unknown. So even if you're wanting a positive change, your subconscious is like, whoa, that's destabilizing. I don't know if I want to do that. So it'll
mm,
do. So that type of brain training actually brings your subconscious on board with the things you want, so that they're so much easier to achieve. It just flows with much more ease. So that's one aspect of the brain training. And what I've been getting more and more into lately is neurofeedback type stuff. I just got back from
ooh,
this
yes.
program. I love neurofeedback. I just got back from 40 years of Zen, which is a great program. Yeah, have you done it?
Dave Asprey. Yes, yes. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with 40 Years of Zen.
So good. So I just did I did my first round like 8 years ago. So it was basically like starting over again. And it's fantastic. I just love using the combination of introspection with technology to move your brain forward quickly.
Mm,
And and I'm going to start incorporating some elements of that into my retreats on a smaller scale. than
Nice.
what they do here, because I just think it's so powerful, and we can move so much more swiftly when we have like neurofeedback type elements helping our brains to choose better pathways.
Yes, absolutely. I had my brain mapped earlier this last year. Yeah, and it was amazing to like see the map, talk about like the areas that could use some work, do some neurofeedback, also work with a little neurofeedback machine for about 6 months. And then they remapped my brain and to watch it just clear up in some really beautiful ways. And it's fun to be able to, like, I couldn't tell you that I necessarily feel that much different outside of there's some certain brain fog that existed before that doesn't
Mm,
exist now.
mm,
And it was nice to know that there's all these like easy exercises I could integrate into my day and just into my normal lifestyle. It wasn't like I had to go somewhere, and do, I don't know, 100 push-ups a day or anything like that. It wasn't that
exactly.
kind of training. So it was really fascinating to say, wow, just how responsive the brain and the body want to be in getting
Yes,
back into alignment or being able to get into an optimal kind of level. And I think that that's, a great way to look at it and think about it, and especially when you think about all of the degenerative type diseases and things that are popping up. I know there's big links to like your neurology and things like Parkinson's disease and some of these like age related diseases. And so it's like, oh, how can we all be better about training our brain and getting in a place where things are clear there and we can function at an optimal level. I love
100%.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
talk to me because I know you have a hyperbaric chamber. Did I
Oh,
read that
yeah.
right? Yeah. So
Yes.
I have to tell you, I was in my 20s. So this is over 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago now, where I remember a guy coming out on a stage to talk about hyperbaric chambers and how they were, part of helping people heal from things like Lyme disease. And it was a way to like really oxygenate the cells. And that was the first inkling I ever got of it many, many years ago. But I never actually got into one until about 20 years later. And it was post breast cancer. I was healing
Mhm.
holistically. And I said, what's something that I've known of that could be helpful for me and my cells? And that was definitely one of the modalities I used. So I love that you have one. So talk to me about like, what is the impact that that's had on you and what results have you seen from it? Like, why are you such a believer?
Well, I love this thing. I have a model made by Oxy Health that's called the Respiro model. So it's kind of the middle of the line. And but it's a home use one, so it only goes to 4 psi. So if you go to a professional hyperbaric chamber, they go much higher in the pressure, but the home use ones typically go to 4 psi. So which means pounds pressure, pounds per. It's basically how much the oxygen pressure it is. I don't remember what psi means, and it you lie in there for 90 minutes as you're and I bring an iPad in there. I watch Netflix, I read, I sometimes I take calls in there. It's pretty fun. And I bought it originally because I had to have my first hip replacement in 2016 and then I had my second in 2017. So they're really helpful for surgical recovery, just like you have discovered.
Yeah.
And so I was going to rent it. And then I thought, well, I'm having another surgery in a year. And the other benefit is also anti aging in the sense that the more our tissues are oxygenated, this is why it's great to keep moving and walking and breathing as much as we can for as long as we can. The more oxygenated our tissues are, the more capable our cells are at healing, dumping waste, rejuvenating themselves. The body has an incredible capacity to heal if given the right uh, building blocks.
Yes.
And even if it hasn't had the right building blocks for a long time, start giving it the right building blocks and you'd be amazed at what can recover. And so I am just a huge fan of hyperbaric because it's non-invasive. It's something simple. I don't have to take a pill. It doesn't go through the digestive system, which can be compromised in a lot of us. Like not, we don't always absorb everything
Right.
that we
Right.
take. And it's something that's just so easy to do. I just lie in there several times a week. And it's not like I dramatically feel different after a session,
Hmm.
but overall, it helps with soreness. So I find that when I'm sore from working out, it dissipates quicker.
Mm.
It helps with those are the main things I notice. It's really mostly around aches and pains.
Okay.
That yeah,
No, that's a great test of like what's working and what's not working. And I feel you on that. Even when I had breast cancer, I didn't feel sick. Like I didn't have any noticeable symptoms that, I feel like the movies like to give people this idea that like you're always going to know that there's these all these symptoms happening. And it's like, no, I had none of that. I literally felt a lump. That was the only symptom that showed up that told me something was going on. But
yeah,
I think it's also one thing I go back to is remembering of like how much the body does want to be well and how it does have this amazing capacity to heal. And when you are, feeding it clean food and when you are putting it in an environment like a hyperbaric chamber, that, really helps the cells, that the body just does what it's supposed to do and it bounces back in so many really, really beautiful ways. And I know that for me, it's knowing when things are a little off by tracking my numbers through things like blood work, things that I may not feel it for myself, but I can see it in my blood work, or it is in the actual like, oh, I'm a little more tired lately, or oh, I'm a little more fill in the blank. And that usually gives me a good indication that, okay, like what's off, what's different? Am I eating a little more sugar than I should? Am I, like, did I have too much dairy this week? There's all these little indicators, right? That we can get and that are our little signals, our little flags that the body sends off to say, hey, like something's going on here. They're not always the big things, they're not always I can't use my arm or my leg's not working,
right,
sometimes
right. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
smaller than that. Yeah. So I love that. I think that's amazing. And I've
To that, to
known
that
people that
point,
really swear by it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
To that point, a couple things flashed as you were speaking. I want to say a word about the Oura Ring in case your
Okay.
listeners aren't familiar. The Oura Ring, OURA, is a sleep tracker, steps tracker. It tracks your heart rate variability. It gives you your readiness level each day. So each morning I wake up, there's a message that says, "Good job, your body recovered well last night. Go take charge. Go out and get it." And then other days it's like, "Ooh, you didn't recover that well last night. Your heart rate stayed elevated. Why might that be? Could you tag what you did last night?" So there's a way to track and understand how sugar affects your body, how
Mhm.
weight or eating early affect your body differently with respect to what time you go to bed and how well you sleep. You can start to figure all this stuff out when you track it. And so I'm a huge fan of the Oura Ring. I think it's one of the most effective trackers out there, and they keep adding more features all the time and integrating with your health app on the iPhone. Like, it
Oh,
integrates with different things. It's great. I track my exercise, like everything through this ring, and it's a
yeah.
lot Fitbit. It's just very
Yeah.
simple. So that's one thing. And the other thing that flagged is something that I've been aware of and I've used before, but I finally committed to owning my own machine, which is PEMF technology. So that's pulsed electromagnetic frequency. And it's kind of popular right now. So, like, everybody and their mother says they have PEMF in their machines, but there are some, and I suppose any PEMF is somewhat good PEMF, but more there's PEMF that's doing more, and then there's PEMF that's just like nice. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I went with a company called Pulse, PULSE, Pulse PEMF, and they just have the top of the line PEMF products on the market. So it's actually arriving tomorrow. We're getting a chair pad and
Oh,
another pad and paddles you can put around joints and things like that. And what it does is it pulses this electromagnetic frequency through your cells, different than the chamber, but with a similar idea. It works your cells and it helps them get more energy to be able to do their function better. So at any
yes.
given moment, some cells are working great in our body and some cells are not working great. That's just how it is. And as we get older, more and more cells tend to not work so great if we're not doing stuff to mitigate that, like getting in a chamber or getting on a PEMF machine or things like that, or exercising or drinking clean water or sleeping. Sleep
Yeah.
is huge. I mean, if somebody, if buying all these machines is not in access and if there isn't a clinic that has all these things nearby, we can still sleep, move, eat, poop, and have sex. Like those are the 5 top biohacking things for a good life, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you're not with a partner, you can have sex with yourself. It still matters. Like
I love it.
those are my top 5 biohacking recommendations is just make sure you're sleeping, eating, pooping, effing, and moving
Uh,
are on point.
oh, it's so
Right?
good.
Start
That's so
there.
good.
And then everything else is extra
Yes.
and good, right? So I just wanted to bring PEMF because I'm super excited about it and I've finally committed to having my own PEMF situation at home. And I just, if that is within reach for someone, I think that's a real game changer. PEMF,
Yeah.
red light, oxygen would be the 3 top
Yes.
modalities I would recommend. Obviously,
Yes,
neurofeedback.
I would totally agree with that. My first experience with the PEMF was at a biohacking conference, and then my second experience was actually at a gym that we have locally here. That's a recovery gym, and it's actually for recovering athletes. And
Amazing.
they have the table, and the table is incredible. They also have a chair, but the table, I have to say, that experience was off the charts. And I
Yeah.
remember my whole body just feeling like this giant, it was like a giant tapping session, but for your entire body. And although that one was much more intense, I also noticed the difference from the time I started doing it to 30 days later, because I was literally doing just about every day. And it was
Wow.
fascinating to see how much in my hips were tight.
Yes.
And the coach was mentioning, he said, yeah, he goes, almost everyone's, you can really feel it in the hips. That's where everybody seems to hold some stuff, and the hips is where it's at. And then even feeling it like in my sinuses and noticing that my sinuses
Yeah.
were like a little stuffy. That was really weird to like have just one section of my head where I was like, why is it only in this one
Oh,
spot? Yeah, it was really mind blowing. And then
yeah.
30 days later to be like, oh, it's not in my head at all. Like it's
Yeah.
completely clear. And the same with the hips. Like I have this machine on full capacity and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Let's keep going. And just
Yeah.
again, just how responsive the body is. And that ended up leading me to buy one of my own machines. I didn't buy the table. The table is like
Yeah, table.
$40,000. I believe it's
Exactly.
really,
I
really
didn't
pricey. Yeah.
I skipped the
Yeah.
table too.
Yeah, the table's up there, but I ended up buying what's called an amp coil, which is has been fantastic, and they came out with the chair piece this year, so there's a chair attachment to it. So that total cost me about $8,500. So that gives everyone kind of a price range of what's out there and what's available. And if I had more space, I'd say that I probably would ante up for the table, because the table was really remarkable. But fortunately, I have a
Yeah.
gym close by where I can
Yeah,
experience it.
ditto. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but having the one at home has been amazing, because anytime my friends are not feeling well, anytime they start to feel a little ticky, I always say, "Come over." I create a profile for them. They sit with the machine, and it's great. It's great it's got settings for even before bed to relax a little bit more. It's got settings for de-stressing. It's got all kinds of great settings, and a lot of great studies behind it. So I think that for sure is a technology I love, I stand by as well. And I love hearing you talk about it, because you're totally right. Like it's
Yeah.
remarkable. And let's talk a little bit about red light therapy, because I think that,
Yeah.
you know, there are people out there who are listening and they're like, ooh, red light, what does that actually mean? We're thinking of like old school Kmart, red light special. Is that what we're talking about? No, that's not what we're talking about. um, but for those of you that may not be completely familiar with the red light, it's literally red lights, and they're infrared, correct?
Well, there's
Yeah.
both. So different machines have different. There are some that are just red light. There are some that are just infrared light, and
Okay.
then that can be near, far, mid. Uh, And then there's some that are a mix of both. So it kind of
Okay.
depends on what you want to work on. So the red light itself is typically the most superficial. So that's going to be really great for skincare. So
Okay.
you've probably seen these like Freddy Krueger like
Yeah.
masks. They're showing up. I'm noticing them in movies and TV, kind of as a comic relief. Somebody walks
Yeah.
in the house and the person's got their red light mask on. It's pretty funny. Anyway, those are typically most effective for skin, and it's the most sort of superficial penetration that the red light does. Infrared penetrates a little deeper, and depending on if you're wanting to sort of have more generalized uh, health boost to your system, sort of immune level, Or if you're wanting to target directly into the muscle tissue, that's a particular infrared. I think muscle tissue is like near infrared, far infrared goes even deeper. I'm not a super expert on red light therapy, so I don't want to misspeak. However, it's an incredibly effective way to boost the activity of your own mitochondria, which are the battery packs of your cells. So, your mitochondria is where a lot of your energy comes from to run your body and
Mm-hmm.
to have energy for life. And anything you can do to boost the mitochondria is a good thing. So there's some supplements that help to do that. There's a new supplement out called Mito Pure that I can't report on because I only started taking it a few weeks ago. So I don't have a lot of, personal data to share yet because
Mm-hmm.
it's recent. But there's supplements you could take. And then red light is a really quick and dirty, easy way. You just get it on your skin. You have to stand pretty close to the machines, typically within 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches.
Yep.
And it basically, it's like it energizes your body from the inside out. It feels warm, it feels delicious, and yeah, it feels
I
great.
love it. Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, I've been doing red light therapy for a really long time, and I can speak to the effects of the skin and aging and all that good stuff, or anti-aging, I guess we'd call it, since that's the term. But what I do love about it is you're right. There are different levels of it, and you can be a superficial skin, or you can actually get in there and actually start working those cells from the inside out. I also love that I personally feel like my afterburn is way more effective, even from workouts and things like that, by also using the machine. So I find that using it close to a workout. So that's maybe after I've had
Ooh,
my shower, or sometimes even before. It's amazing actually what it can do for you, and that's a fun, like, sort of like a stack. It's a way to stack it with something else, and see some really good results. So
oh, that's a
so I
great
hope
tip.
you all are paying attention. These are all amazing modalities. They're all definitely ones that I've used in my own healing journey, post cancer. I'm 7 years now, here soon, cancer free. So that's been really, really a great way to heal naturally, and not I chose not to do chemotherapy. I chose not to do radiation. I didn't even take any of the drugs they sent me home with. So I feel like
Wow.
my body's in such a good place, and it feels good to feel good, like just the
Yeah.
quality of life, yeah, that shows up. And I want to talk a little bit about other things that people can do around. I don't know, Marie Elizabeth, if you use this in your practice, but how about fasting? Is fasting anything that you?
Oh, yeah, it's funny. I recently, after coming back from 40 years of Zen, I sort of naturally started intermittent fasting again. I hadn't done it in years. It was super effective. So here's the difference, though, which is an important thing I want to distinguish for your listeners. Because when I did it the first time, it worked great. I dropped a bunch of weight. I got really ripped. I felt, good. But then I started to have too much cortisol.
Mm,
Like I started to get anxious, and I would have this tight, anxious, like, I mean, I can feel what cortisol feels like in my body. It's
mm,
like a tight, anxious, revving. It's like
mm,
kind of feeling. uh, and I was at that time intermittent fasting with bulletproof coffee, and it was caffeinated. And so I was relying on caffeine to cut the
mm,
symptoms of hunger and fat, of course, but mostly caffeine to cut the symptoms of hunger. And what that did was it over adrenalized my system. So I was in constant fight or flight. So I had to stop. There was a moment where it was like diminishing returns. Like I just didn't like how
mm,
I felt. I went back to a more typical 12-hour. At that time I was fasting, I think 18 hours a day, 16 or 80, somewhere around there. Then I went back to just a typical 12-hour, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. type fast, eating 3 meals a day. And I also moved to Mexico. My diet changed a bit and I gained like 25 pounds. And I'm also 57. I mean, I'm in that point of life, metabolically, where weight is a lot easier to pack on than get off.
mhm,
So, uh, coming out of 40 years of Zen, I decided to give intermittent fasting a try again because I gave up caffeine before the
Mm,
program. So before this particular neurofeedback program, you give up caffeine, you give up alcohol, you give up, all the vices, and so that your brain can just be as neutral and natural as possible. So you can see what's actually here without like revving it up and slowing it down, without
mhm.
revving it up with caffeine or slowing it down with weed, if that's your
Yeah.
practice. So I was off caffeine through the program, and I'm continuing to stay off caffeine. But I'm doing a bulletproof decaf coffee, and then I'm
Mm,
also taking exogenous ketones. So, like when we get back from walking the dogs, I have my bulletproof coffee, decaf, and then that's about 8 a.m. And then about 10:30 a.m. I have a little shot of ketones. There's a really great product called Ketones IQ. Tastes horrible. I have to hold my breath, shoot it down, and chase it with water that washes the taste out of the mouth. That's how I
yep.
take it. But it works like a charm.
Mm,
I break my fast typically around somewhere between 12 and 1. And with stopping eating about 7 p.m., 7:30 the night before. So I'm fasting somewhere again between 16 to 18 hours, but I feel steady. I feel
yeah.
calm. I've checked my fat burning there's a little thing called a lumen
I
that you
have a
can breathe.
Lumen. Yep.
Okay. So I breathed into my lumen today after my workout, and I was like, oh, yay, I'm in fat burning. Like I was in number one because I work out fasted. So that's the other
Mhm.
recommendation, is to do your workout toward the end of the fast when you're in a fat burning stage already. And then at that point, after the workout, that's when you break the fast. So yes, I'm practicing that. I have not been actively teaching that to my clients because I just picked it up again a couple weeks ago, and I'm in
Yeah.
my own lab right now. Like I'm in the lab
Okay.
of me right now, uh, and I think it just feels so good to my system to be putting less food in, and not
Mm,
from a restrictive, hunger
right.
inducing space,
Right. Right.
but from a more time, what's going to allow my body to do the repair most efficiently that it wants to do, which
Right.
happens when we fast.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, happens when we fast and when we sleep. So that's why those two are so super important, is that we are getting the right nutrients at the right time and then also allowing our body to rest and recover. And so often, one of the things that the Lumen device taught me, and for those of you that don't know that what that is, it looks almost like a vape, almost like a strange wide vape pen, and it's black, and you literally breathe into it, you hold, and then you hold your breath for 10 seconds, and then you breathe back out, and it reads your CO2 levels, and it kind of lets you know if you're in fat burning mode, if you're in carb burning mode, and it gives you kind of a percentage. And the idea is that you always want to wake up in fat burning mode, is one of the principles on there. But it's nice to be able to see where you fluctuate, and also what foods might affect what you're doing, and what foods and when you're eating. So it gives you a little bit of data just to let you know how your body is operating. So I really liked the Lumen from that perspective. The other thing I think, which is really important, is also understanding, like, when you are already in fat burning mode, which I know you take your gnarly little tincture for that, which I totally get. I'm a nose holder too for so many things that I'm like, not palatable, but gotta do it because it's good for me. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, if none of you know that, by the way, I could never understand this about that show. What was the one? A Fear Factor. Because people would
Oh,
eat really gross stuff, and I was like, why aren't they just holding their nose right now? Because you just
just
hold your nose, you can't taste a thing.
you won't taste it, right? I mean, I just kind of hold my breath. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
I
Yeah.
know. I was like, "Oh, that would solve so much." They would be able to move on to the next stage if they would just hold their nose. Maybe they didn't allow them to. I don't know. But when we're already in fat burning mode, because what you said is really important. You work out at the end of your ketosis window or your fasting window because you know you're in ketosis. The reason that is important for us to be able to do is because it also means we're maximizing our fat burn. We're burning like 3 times as much when we do it that way. And so it's one really beautiful way to sort of understand like how the body works and how each individual body works. So if you can get to a point where you are doing something like a long fast, then in the mornings, since that's obviously coming towards the end of the window, you're most likely going to be waking up in fat burn, and that's going to be the most ideal time also to get that workout in and get your 3x on your fat burn. And then and then when you are back to eating normally, then your muscles also can do their job, which is also eating up eating up calories while
Yep.
you're in rest mode, which is what we all want to
Yes.
achieve too. And I don't know about you, Marie Elizabeth, but I have found that as I get older, because now I'm approaching 50, it's doing the like all of my weight exercises, making sure that like I'm doing those weight bearing exercises and jumping and moving around, just the movement, lots of stretching to make sure that my body is also feeling like loose and way less likely to get an injury, has been so important. And I can feel the difference. And I especially feel it in just how I feel more solid in my body, and I feel like, oh, like everything feels stronger. And when it's stronger, I'm more mobile because I'm doing the
Yes.
small things like the stretching throughout the day and also making sure the weight bearing is there. And it's so interesting finding the groove and also seeing the shift for myself from being younger and being able to do some things to drop weight, no problem. And then getting older and going, oh, these same things don't work like they used to. And then we talk about hormones and how hormones start to play a part in all that we do as well. And that's such a big piece of it too. I heard you talk about MitoPure. I actually just ordered mine as well, and I'm excited to try it. The science behind it is actually fantastic, and I
Yep.
have some good friends of mine that actually do formulations, and the MitoPure was one of the ones that they had looked at too, that they wanted
Mhm.
to sort of look at having something really really similar because it was such a great product. So I'm very
Wow.
excited to take it and see the results from it and see what happens and see how it feels. What are some other supplements that you take, or some other, even how you eat? Like, are there any,
Yeah.
any like, do you supplement with collagen? Are you taking glutathione shots? Like, what are some of the other things that you do?
Oh my God, I just love nerding out on all this stuff with you. It's so good. So I do a lot of the things. I do many of the things. So where we live in Mexico, there's a clinic basically 5 minutes from the house where I do IVs. So when I'm in California, I don't do IVs so much because it's just not as convenient to get anywhere because I live in Santa Monica and there's hella traffic everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but in Mexico, I live in Los Cabos and there's a clinic right nearby. I do PRP facials there. I do they about once a month I'll do an NAD plus ozone IV
Wow.
treatment. Anytime I land after a trip, I do a Myers cocktail. That's basically like a vitamin drip. That's
Yep.
really helpful when you've been traveling. It's just restorative. And so I do that type of stuff there. What I've found supplement wise is I'm actually switching up my stack. There was some new stuff I learned at 40 Years of Zen that had me switch things up. There's a new NAD plus precursor supplement called Nuchido, Nuchido. They have a ton of clinical studies and research. I'm not equipped to go deep into the nerdery around NAD plus and what actually makes our bodies produce it or not. But most often, we're taking precursors, and not all of them work as effectively as they could. So what these folks did with this Nuchido, I think it's called Time Plus, or I forget the name of the product, but I mean, if you just go to Nuchido and it'll be there because it's the product that they sell. It's actually several different herbs and nutrients that they've found in combination teach your body, stimulate your body to produce NAD plus, which is a massive uh, importance as we age. It's what our bodies start producing less of as we get older. It's a molecule that's intimately related to the health of our cells and how we feel. So I'm starting to take that. And then the other thing that I've added in the mornings is magnesium L-threonate. So there's 50 bajillion types of magnesium.
Right.
And there's a particularly good one. Glycinate is the one you want to take before you go to sleep because that helps you sleep better and helps your muscles restore better. Magnesium L3 threonate is the only one that actually crosses the blood-brain barrier and is helpful to your brain for thinking, processing speed, cognition, etc. And so I've added that in recently. And I mean, I take a bunch of other things, but those are the main. Serapeptase, like some kind of enzyme, proteolytic enzyme that breaks debris down and gets it out of your system. I
Mm-hmm.
the one made by Source Naturals, I think, but there's lots of different serapeptase providers out there.
Yep.
And then the other important category of supplements to think about is senolytics. So senolytics are supplements that again help your body get rid of the waste. Because what happens is our bodies get less and less efficient at taking out the trash as we get older.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the more trash builds up in our system, and that's where we get more aches, more pains, more stiffness, our digestion worsens, like everything starts getting creakier because there's more gunk in the system. And so I happen to like the Qualia uh, senolytic formula. You take it just 2 days per month.
Mm-hmm.
I have it on an auto ship and I take it 2 days per month, and it just helps the body take out the trash. So those
Mm.
are the main, I would say those are the most important sort of the MitoPure, NAD, senolytics, serapeptase, and then your basic nutrition, right? Oh, I am also taking another cool thing that I just started about a month ago called Manna, MANNA.
Okay.
That's really basic trace minerals, but it's also got shilajit and ormose, so some cool ethereal things as well.
Yes.
I'm liking how that feels. It tastes like dirt. Got to combine it with other stuff.
Yeah.
I take it with Element with LMNT is a what do you call that? You know, when you're dehydrated, it's electrolyte packet. So I
Yes.
take Element, and the flavor of that is helpful for overriding the flavor of the manna. So I take those two together. I do a little bit of nose holding there, but not so much. And so those are the main things. I think trace minerals, senolytics, serapeptase, NAD, the magnesium for your brain,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the mitopure for
I
your
love that.
mitochondria.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so good. I take a lot of the same things, and I'm a big fan. I like the magnesium before bed, and I think it's
yeah,
really important too for people to know there are many different kinds of magnesium, y'all, and magnesium gets a bad rap sometimes in articles. And this is where I'm a little upset with journalists that don't do their real homework because
yeah,
it depends on the kind of magnesium you're taking. It's the same with calcium. Like there's different kinds of calcium, and what we're really talking about also in whatever supplement that's showing up for you is making sure that it's something that your body is absorbing and also
right,
making sure that you're taking the right things with the right things. So for
right,
example, you don't take zinc and calcium together. So there's
right.
there's rules sort of around how you take your vitamins too, so you're not wasting them.
Yeah,
And I found it really interesting because with the boost of COVID showing up, I also saw a boost in everyone now adding zinc to a lot of the supplements that are out there that might not have had them before. And so that's been an interesting thing to watch, right? Because the big hoopla was that zinc was going to help offset some of the things with COVID. But the problem
uh,
is, it was like, yes, but what is this actual vitamin or mineral or supplement doing for me? And really, should it be including something like zinc? Because we actually don't need all that much zinc as a daily value. So I think
and
that
are
those
things
pieces.
canceling each other out.
Correct.
Like I
Yes,
think,
exactly. Are you
that-
taking something that's canceling something else out? Your $30
right,
a month is canceling your other $30 a month, but you're spending 60. So
exactly. I think
yes.
this is the danger with these formulas that have like 70 things in them because there's
Yeah.
just no guarantee that one thing isn't canceling other things out. So I'm actually super simplifying my stack from what I used to do because
Yeah.
of that, because things are duplicated in multiple formulas, or
Right.
you don't need as much of a thing, so you actually don't
Right.
need to supplement that as much, or things are actively canceling each other out. So you got to do some homework
Yes,
when
absolutely,
you're yeah,
absolutely, and also homework for your own body, right? So this is where I'm a fan of like the hair mineral testing because it tells you if you've got any heavy metals. It's not as invasive as blood for any of you who are squirmish or squeamish or don't want the cost of it. Hair tests are relatively a little more inexpensive and much less painful.
yeah,
uh, in that sense, but they still give you good data, and it could be hair from anywhere on your body for those of you that might be bald, and being able to like you send that in and find out like, hey, if you eat sushi down the street at Joe's sushi place, then if your metals are high, then it's could be possible if that's the only place you're getting your fish that their fish has a high mercury content or metals content, so you might want to not eat there for the next month and then try again and see if you can, get a cleaner fish source. So there's,
yep,
some of those ways that kind of help you figure out like what's good for you and what's not. For
yep,
us, for especially with women who are still menstruating, you are, obviously losing blood every month, and so your body obviously will do what it needs to replenish. But
yep,
for women who are, of course, postmenopause, like myself, then we have to be a little more creative. So donating blood, same with guys. If you donate blood, that's a really great way to kind of actually also flush out your system because it means now your body's
mm,
new red blood cells, and that part is really great as well. There's also modalities of ozonating your blood where they take it out, they ozone it, and put it back in.
yep,
I love that you're in Mexico, Marie Elizabeth, because I know you have access to some really fun stuff that we don't always have clear access to here in the US, and the
yep,
pricing is so much better. One of the
yeah,
things that I also did when I first got a breast cancer diagnosis is I started calling all these clinics in Mexico, Germany, Thailand, because I knew they were alternative health, and
yeah,
just getting that input was really helpful for me while I was fact finding, right? Because I wanted
yeah,
to have as much information as I could to make a good decision for myself. And I found that making those phone calls, talking to those doctors, sharing my results, and just asking and saying, hey, you see this all day long. People are showing up in your clinic because most of them have been told by their doctor that there's nothing they can do. So these people are usually showing up at sort of a much later stage. And the
exactly,
conversation was fascinating because the conversation was, well, I'm in this earlier stage of cancer. I'm in kind of the beginnings of it. And so what would this look like for someone like me who's overall healthy and hasn't
yeah,
isn't full of toxins like chemo and things like that. And
yeah,
they were so excited. And it was interesting to hear the doctor's level of excitement around like, ooh, to get someone that's in this earlier stage that hasn't, their body's not broken down by chemo or radiation or a lot of drugs, to have them come in and just holistically be able to fuel their body in some beautiful ways was really exciting for them. And that got exciting for me because that's where it told me, oh wow, like they've seen this a few times. So they can attest to this, and also what feels good for me, like what's going to bring me peace. And so I think that part is the most important as well, because obviously all of this starts in our mind, and we have to live with our
yeah,
thoughts and so much around that. So I think that's such a big
exactly.
piece of it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
can I come back to that? Reminded me of something you said that was so brilliant before about, it's not always the big thing. It's not like your arm falling off or some massive thing. It's those little adjustments and those little, oh, I'm a little off in this way or that way.
Yeah.
My background is in traditional Chinese medicine. So before I was coaching clients, I practiced acupuncture and herbology. And the perspective of Chinese medicine is you're always treating versus the West. Let's start with Western medicine. In Western medicine, typically you go into a doctor because you have a symptom, and the doctor wants to treat the symptom. And it's very effective when it's an acute symptom. Like you get hit by a truck, you have a broken leg, there's nothing better. Go to the ER, get your leg sewed up, set, fix, sewed up.
Yeah.
Where Western medicine struggles more is around chronic situations, chronic diseases, chronic illnesses or imbalances. It's not as well equipped to deal with that because it's all about chasing symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Chinese medicine and also Ayurveda, other ancient medicines, that's more their strength. So in Chinese medicine, you're always looking at treating what's called the terrain or the underlying earth of the body that's underlying the symptoms. So it's not that I wouldn't treat symptoms. You treat symptoms if they're acute. But in Chinese medicine, you're looking more at the constellation of symptoms, which don't always all seem related to each other, but
Right.
often are from a Chinese medicine perspective.
Yeah.
And then treating the underlying thing that's causing the symptom to arise. So, from that perspective, it's important. That's why you want to pay attention to the little stuff. Don't ignore the little stuff until you get a big wallop of,
Right.
you're flat on your back and you can't move because you're so sick. Don't
Right.
wait.
Right.
Actually do things when the things are small,
Right. That's
because
right.
by treating the underlying terrain, which is the body, the mind, your spiritual connection, your relationships, your connections with others, by
Yes.
by improving those things, then your symptoms have a chance to reduce because the underlying things that were causing them have been better, as opposed to slapping on a band-aid and pretending everything's fine, because it's
Right.
not. If the
Right.
underlying thing isn't better, it's going to come back.
That's
And
right.
that's really fundamentally, has so fundamentally affected my worldview. Even when I was a relationship coach, I would always be focused on the terrain of the connection, the terrain of the relationship, not just the symptom of, oh, we're arguing or we're not
Right.
having sex, whatever the symptom is. I'm like, yeah, yeah, but what's happening down here at the level of the connection? And how do you feed that? Because if you
Right.
feed that, everything else gets better.
Yes. Oh, so good. Preach, preach. It's so good. It's so good. Yes. No, really, because it's true. We are connected, and that holistic view, that overall view, I think is 100% the way to go. Sit and watch. I've sat and watched my mom this last year in and out of the hospital, and it's been crazy to sit in that seat and observe and advocate, because I'm watching them literally sort of follow a protocol, right? And the protocol is just a pill at this certain time to make sure that she's still taking her blood pressure meds while she's in the hospital, but she's having this procedure, and they're so concerned with getting the pill in her at the certain time that they're not thinking of who she is as a person, which we've already told them, hey, before she takes a pill, she's got to have some food in her. Otherwise, that pill and everything else is going to come up because
Yeah,
she's got nothing in her stomach. But they're missing that part, which is a vital, vital piece of information that could make all the difference. And it was fascinating to watch them, number one, not do it, watch
yeah,
her throw up the pill and everything else that was in her stomach, and then watch her blood pressure continue to just go on this whirlwind for the next like 3-4 hours, only to go
wow,
back to, guys, had we just hold our horses for a minute, give her a little, even a piece of bread or a piece of toast, wait 10
yeah,
minutes, let her take her pill. Like, it's the small things that can make such a big difference. And you're right,
yeah,
too oftentimes we dismiss something, or we just take a quick pill to get rid of that little pain, or to work through it because we're too busy with our lives, and I think that that's where we forget that, like, without our health, then
yeah,
our body will force us at some point to full stop. And then
yep,
we're forced into those situations where, now our quality of life suffers. And now we may not have the choices that we could have made, had we made them when things were not as severe.
yep.
Marie Elizabeth, you've been a phenomenal guest. I'm really, really excited about us continuing this conversation over on the YouTube channel. So, y'all, we're unfortunately running out of time today because I think we could keep going. This is so good, and I love jamming out on all the biohacking things. If you want to get in touch with our guest today, please check out the show notes or pop down into the comment section, and you are going to see all the ways to get the goods. Marie Elizabeth also has a free gift for you today, and that is her Wise Woman Power Quiz, where you can discover which wise woman power best turns on your passion and purpose for this next phase of life. And if you happen to identify as a man, you can take it to and tap into your feminine side.
There you
With that,
go.
With that, y'all, today, that is the live show. And if you want more, please catch the extended version exclusively over on the YouTube channel at the Mad Love Your Life show. And feel free to head over to maryd.com for more information on the Mad Love that's available for you. Until next time, may abundance always walk beside you. May joy always go before you. And may love always guide you on your path. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. We air live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Bold Brave TV. We hope to see you back next week. For more ways to connect with my guests, content, programs, and retreats, just head over to www.maryd.com and subscribe. That's MARYDEE.com.